For the first time, leaders on the Iron Range held an inaugural State of the Range address. Residents, lawmakers, and community partners gathered at Giants Ridge to hear about where the range is and where it hopes to be. Northern News Now's Jeffrey McClure was there and shares how leaders hope to attract more people to the region, including people calling the range home.
For more than a century, the Iron Range has lived up to its name as the largest supplier of iron in the United States. On Thursday, stakeholders held its first ever State of the Range, addressing goals for the region.
Sometimes we need to tell our story a little bit more, and so we thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about the work we do, highlight the work we've done last year, a little bit of the history, and then looking forward what we have coming and what our priorities are for the next years to come.
The Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation hosted the event and says that the future includes a range of possibilities. Executive Director Christian Vaki of the Iron Mining Association says it's important to put the Iron Range on a global map.
We can't expect people to understand and appreciate what they don't know or to recognize what they've never seen. It's up to us to show them.
The goal is to bring more investments into the area, something the IRRRB has continued to do for decades, totaling $420 million in regional investments into small businesses, schools, and the workforce.
Everyone always knows that there's at least 10 people working on it that are ready to get that project across the finish line.
Representative Spencer Igo is one of 8 IRRRB board members, all lawmakers working to get the work done. An organization that is unique to the state and country.
The Iron Range Resources Board, those people are elected by our community members. They live here in the community. They know the needs of the people.
Promising a future on the range that benefits everyone. In the Iron Range, Jeffrey McClure, Northern News Now.
Jeffrey, thank you. About 100 people attended the address and were invited to share their thoughts at a social hour following the event. Leaders do hope to have more State of the Range addresses in the future.